Vice President J.D. Vance is heading to Hungary next week in what appears to be a show of support for Prime Minister Viktor Orban, just days before the country's election. Hungary's leader of 16 years could be in real trouble, with polling showing that centre-right candidate Peter Magyar is currently leading. President Trump has already endorsed Orban, who has faced condemnation for his authoritarian actions. As Politico notes, the overt politicking on behalf of any foreign leader runs counter to a long tradition of American administrations generally staying out of other countries' domestic politics. But Vance has long made waves in Europe for his support of far-right parties. Joining us now is Anne Applebaum, staff writer for The Atlantic and author of Autocracy Incorporated, The Dictators Who Want to Run the World. Anne, thanks for joining us this morning. It's very interesting that in sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the top, what's rising to the top of this pyramid right now for J.D. Vance is Hungary. What should our takeaway of this decision be?
I think it shows the degree to which Vance and a small part of the Trump administration and maybe a larger part of the MAGA movement care more about changing the governments of European countries in order to build a MAGA far-right alliance in Europe and maybe South America than they care about the domestic problems of the United States. So to be clear, the leader of Hungary, Viktor Orban, is by many counts the most corrupt leader in Europe. His country is one of the poorest in the European Union. He's been ruling Hungary for 16 years. He's slowly taken over the institutions of the state there, the judiciary, the media, the bureaucracy. He's made his country, as I said, poor and corrupt. And yet Vance feels that this is the leader he wants to support because he sees Hungary as a model for the U.S. and for American politics.
And I think it's your latest book, Autocracy Inc., which is a amazing look at the idea that the kind of authoritarian regimes are kind of loosely connected. And it seems like, according to what you're saying, that this president, this vice president, assuredly, based on his behavior, wants us to be connected in that way. And I want to look at some of the things that Orban has done over the years. This is E4, Karen. From Bloomberg, Orban threatens opponents with jail over foreign influences. This is 2023. BBC, Hungary bans same-sex couples from adopting children, 2020. From 2018, Hungary's leader says refugees should be called Muslim invaders. NPR from 2018, Hungary passes Stop Soros laws, bans aid to undocumented immigrants. Some of those things sound similar to what was in Project 2025 here in the United States, and even some of the things that this president has made clear he wants to implement. There's a deep connection here.
So Project 2025 was partly modeled on the Hungarian experience. There's no question that there's been interaction between, as I said, this one piece of the MAGA movement and the Hungarian government. And also understand that because this is a radical movement, so they believe that they are more secure when they have like-minded governments in other places. So they have a very revolutionary attitude towards the rest of the world. They think that they want radical transformational change and in the direction of what Orban himself has called illiberal democracy, which of course is an oxymoron. It doesn't make sense. It means a country where one party controls all the institutions of the state and where, in essence, the opposition can't win. And that's worked for Orban for a long time. It's not working for him now because of what I said in my first answer, that Hungary is growing poorer. It's very corrupt. The corruption is now very visible. The prime minister's son-in-law and his friends and family have been obviously involved in schemes to take money from the state and launder them into their private businesses. And Hungarians can see through this. I should say there's one other aspect of this that's really interesting and maybe will be important for our elections, which is that the Hungarian campaign, Viktor Orban's Fidesz, his party's campaign, is based on an entirely false story. So he's not even campaigning on Hungarian domestic interests. He's not talking about healthcare or hospitals. He's telling Hungarians that they are facing a possible threat of invasion from Ukraine. So the Ukrainians, as if they didn't have enough to do fighting the Russians, are going to invade Hungary. So they've created this completely false story. This morning, there's news that supposedly explosives have been found on a pipeline leading into Hungary, and everybody's now preparing for Viktor Orban to blame that on the Ukrainians. In other words, when you walk around Budapest, which I did a couple of weeks ago, you see pictures of President Zelensky everywhere and slogans saying, "Don't let him get the last laugh." So Orban can't win on the issues. He's winning on this post-reality campaign. It's the expression I used when I wrote about it in The Atlantic.
And Hungary is a member of NATO. And so given everything that you just said about Hungary, the corruption, the increased poverty, I'm wondering, and now with the vice president going over to Hungary on the eve of its election, what does all this do to the already wobbly cohesion within NATO?
So Hungary is seen inside NATO and inside the European Union as effectively now a Russian puppet. They've blocked sanctions on Russia. They're blocking aid to Ukraine. And the Vance's support for Orban, just like Rubio was actually there a couple of months ago, Trump has spoken about Orban in video messages. That support is seen as, in effect, support for Russia's war against Ukraine and Russia's campaign against Europe. So it is, you're right exactly to point it out in that context. It's another piece of the story why America's European allies feel so reluctant to help Trump in his war on Iran. It's a part of why they are preparing for a breakdown of the alliance. So it's seen as de facto. Vance's visit is also seen as support for Russia.
As always, Anne Applebaum, it is wonderful to have you bring your expertise to the weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you.